We'll be reading from 1 Samuel chapter 17, starting with verse 40. And I'll be reading from the New Living Translation. That's 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 40. He picked up 5 smooth stones from a stream and put them into his shepherd's bag. Then, armed only with his shepherd's staff and sling, he started across the valley to fight the Philistine. Verse 48. As Goliath moved closer to attack, David quickly ran out to meet him. Reaching into his shepherd's bag and taking out a stone, he hurled it with his sling and hit the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sank in, and Goliath stumbled and fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with only a sling and a stone, for he had no sword. Then David ran over and pulled Goliath's sword from its sheath. David used it to kill him and cut off his head. When the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they turned and ran. Father God, in the name of Jesus, I thank you for this opportunity, this privilege to break the bread of life. God, I thank you, God, for just allowing me to come before your people. God, I pray, God, that I decrease so that you may increase, not me, but you. Your will be done, God. I pray, God, that you anoint my lips, God, my mind, my ears, God. Let preaching be easy, God. Let the word go forward with boldness and accuracy, God. Let the seeds fall on good ground, take root, impact, and change the lives of the hearers. God, for these things we give you praise, glory, and honor. In Jesus' name, amen. I'd like to preach briefly on the topic, prepared for what is ahead. Prepared for what is ahead. Most of us that have been around the church have heard the story of David and Goliath. Even people that don't necessarily attend church regularly, they know about this story. This is an iconic story that pretty much transcends time. And you hear it often in sports when you have a big-time favorite team playing a team that's not as well. It's the classic David meets Goliath type of match. So most of us are familiar with this story, but I want to take a few minutes to just recap a little bit of the backdrop, the background, the backstory that brings us up to this point. And I want to start in 1 Samuel 15, verse 3, and we're going to kind of deal with a little bit of Saul's rejection and a couple other things that bring us up to this point. So in 1 Samuel 15, verse 3, it reads as thus, and also from the New Living Translation. Now go and completely destroy the entire Amalekite nation, men, women, children, babies, cattle, sheep, goats, camels, and donkeys. Verse 9. Saul and his men spared Agag's life and kept the best of the sheep and goats, the cattle, the fat calves, and lambs. Everything, in fact, that appeared to them, everything, in fact, that appealed to them, they destroyed. Only what was worthless or poor quality. Verse 9, I'm going to read it again. Saul and his men, they spared Agag's life and kept the best of the sheep, goats, cattle, the fat calves, the lambs, everything, in fact, that appealed to them, they kept. And then they destroyed only what was worthless or of poor quality. Skip down to verse 11. This is God talking. I'm sorry that I ever made Saul king, for he has not been loyal to me and has refused to obey my command. Samuel was so deeply moved when he heard this that he cried out to the Lord all night. Verse 15, it's true that the army spared the best of the sheep, goats, and cattle, Saul admitted, but they're going to sacrifice them to the Lord, your God. We've destroyed everything else. But Samuel replied, what's more pleasing to the Lord? Your burnt offerings and sacrifices, or your obedience to his voice? Listen, obedience is better than sacrifice, and submission is better than offering the fat of rams. Rebellion is as sinful as witchcraft, and stubbornness as bad as worshiping idols. So because you have rejected the command of the Lord, he has rejected you as king. So even in this story, we hear the phrase all the time, obedience is better than sacrifice. But herein is a story where we see that where it's taken from. And although Saul was given clear, distinct instructions, go and kill these people and completely destroy them. But in his mind, he thought that he could do something better than what God had dictated. God, I know you're telling me what to do, but I think that I can do a little bit more than what you're telling me to do. I know you've given me instructions, but I'm going to take it upon myself to do what I want to do. So because he took it upon himself to follow his own heart and his own mind, God rejected him. See, good intentions, there's an old saying that says the road to hell is paved with good intentions. We could have good intentions, but if they're outside the will, plan, and direction of God, it's deemed as rebellion, disobedience. Partial obedience is disobedience. The prophet told him, obedience is better than sacrifice. Rebellion is as sinful as witchcraft, and stubbornness as bad as worshiping idols. For this reason, Saul, the king, the people's choice, he was rejected. Now, if you flip over to chapter 16, same 1 Samuel 16, starting at verse 1, now we're seeing where God has given Samuel the direction, the mandate to go and anoint the next king. Now the Lord, this is again in 1 Samuel 16, verse 1. Now the Lord said to Samuel, you have mourned long enough for Saul. I've rejected him as king. Now, go fill your flask with olive oil and go to Bethlehem. Find a man named Jesse who lives there, for I have selected one of his sons to be my king. Verse 11. Samuel got there, he went through all the other sons, and God didn't give him the instruction to anoint any of them. So he then asked Jesse, then Samuel asked, are these all of your sons? And Jesse responds and says, there is still the youngest, but he's out in the field watching the sheep and the goats. Send for him at once, Samuel said. We will not sit down and eat until he arrives. So Jesse sends for him. He's a dark, handsome boy with beautiful eyes, and the Lord said, that's the one, anoint him. So David, as he stands there among his brothers, Samuel took out the flask of olive oil that he brought, and he anointed David with the oil. And the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully on David from that day on, and Samuel returned to Ramah. Now, Saul was the people's choice. He looked like a king. He acted like a king. And we understand that man looks on the outward appearance, but God looks on the heart. Even so much so that when Samuel gets to Jesse's house, and they bring all of the older boys there because they look like they could be the next king. David was so far from what they thought a king should look like, they didn't even invite him to the party. They left him out in the field dealing with the sheep. But it wasn't what appeared or who appeared to be the next king. That's not who God was after. God had someone specific in mind. And although they didn't bring him to the party, God said, go get him. When they brought him, they anointed him in front of all his brothers. Now, you would have thought, I would have thought, that when God first started talking to Samuel at the beginning, and he said, go to Jesse's house, God could have easily said, go and anoint David. No, he didn't. I think it was important that they go through the ritual of dealing with all the brothers, then getting the least of them, bringing him around, and then anointing him right there in the midst of all his brothers. Now, think about it. Think about how you felt that time where you felt like you were the one most qualified and you were the one that should have gotten the position or gotten the promotion, but God instead decided to bring somebody under you and promote them over you. If you've ever been in that situation before, most of the time, if we're honest with ourselves, that made you feel some kind of way. You weren't quite happy. Oftentimes you were disgruntled, a little bitter, we say now just salty, because somebody got what you thought should have been yours. I remember working for a company that they brought in temporary employees, you see, and after you worked a certain period of time, for some it was 12 months, 18 months, there were even people that were waiting 24 months to be hired on full-time and brought in to get the benefits of full-time employment. And I came in, and 6 months into my temporary assignment, I was not only hired on, but promotion just kept coming rapidly. And what I found out, what was so strange, that the people that would talk to me and they were friendly to me while I was the temp, once I became full-time and promoted, some of those people didn't even talk to me anymore. When they looked at me, they had one eyebrow raised. They couldn't figure out. They just got bitter towards me because God took the least of them and promoted and elevated them. So I can imagine what David's brothers were feeling, what they were going through. Your anointing, your promotion, it will cause some people to become bitter. It'll even cause some people to leave. It'll cause some people that were here working with you and serving with you and fighting with you for decades, that when they see the wrong person promoted, the wrong person in their eyes, they decide to leave. But God is in control. God is in control. God is in control. He will anoint and appoint whoever he sees fit, and he will qualify those that he calls. But you see, David, although he was anointed, he wasn't appointed as of yet. He was anointed, but he wasn't put into the kingly position as of yet. We'll see that even after being anointed, all he did was serve. He was anointed, but all he did was serve. First, we'll look at 1 Samuel 16, verse 21. And David came to Saul and stood before him, and he loved him greatly and became his armor bearer. And Saul sent to Jesse, saying, Let David, I pray thee, stand before me, for he hath found favor in my sight. And it came to pass, when the evil spirit from God was upon Saul, that David took a harp and played with his hand. So Saul was refreshed and was well, and the evil spirit departed from him. Although David was anointed, while he was waiting on his appointment, he still had to serve. He had to wait and he had to serve. He was anointed, but he had to wait and he still had to serve. He already had a job. He already did things for his father, but after the anointing, you thought he would have been able to leave that job and go into another job, but no, he still had to wait and he had to serve. So now he's an armor bearer and a musician playing for the king. So we see that David, after his anointing, what is he? Now he's a servant serving the king. But not only is he serving the king, he still has to serve his father. 1 Samuel 17, verse 15. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep in Bethlehem. Wait a minute. So he's been anointed, but now he's still serving the king, the armor bearer, the musician, but he still has to serve his father. He still has to go take care of the sheep. You see, these positions, this willingness to serve is preparing him for his destiny. His willingness to serve, his willingness to even deal with sheep is preparing him to lead people. So he's serving the king, he's serving the father, but he also had to serve his brothers. 1 Samuel 17, jump down to verse 17. And Jesse, father, told him, he said to David his son, take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp of thy brethren, and carry these 10 cheeses unto the captains of their thousands, and look how the brethren fare, and take their pledge. So now, he's an armor bearer. He's a musician. He's feeding sheep. He's obedient to his father, and now he has to be a waiter and even serve his brothers that are looking down on him because of the anointing that was done right in front of their eyes. So now he's waiting on his brethren. He's taking the food. He's running out to take the food out to his brothers and their captains. But his willingness to serve the king, his willingness to serve his father, his willingness to serve his brothers, it's that willingness to serve is what takes him to the place of his destiny. Because he was willing to serve, it brings him to the front of the battle. It brings him to the place where he's hearing this Philistine. He's talking down. He's dragging the name of the Israelites through the dirt. And his defiance and his nature and all of this language that he's spewing out towards these people, David's saying, where is our champion? Are we just going to let him go on like this? His willingness to serve brought him close enough to the battle so he could hear exactly what Goliath was saying. He says, if nobody else is going to fight him, I'll fight him. If we could ever get the mindset to just serve, if we could just be willing to serve, our service and the place that it'll take us, that service will bring us to the place of our destiny. It'll bring us right to the forefront of the battle that'll catapult us to legendary status. You see, David, he knows who his God is. He understands his enemy. But outside of all the Israelites that were there, David was the only one that understood that the God I serve will not only take me into the battle, but will make me victorious. My God will make me victorious. So, saying 1 Samuel 17, verse 40, David, he took his staff in his hand, and he chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook. He put them in his shepherd's bag, which he had, even in a scrip, and his sling was in his hand, and he drew near the Philistine. Verse 48, and it came to pass when the Philistine arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hasted. He ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. Verse 49, and David put his hand in his bag and took out thence a stone and slang it, and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face on the earth. You see, in those times, what would happen is the leaders of the army, when they would face each other and prepare for battle, they would take one of the best warriors, you see, and call out the other army's best warrior, and they would meet in the middle, and they would fight, and whoever won that fight, that army that they represented would be declared the winner. So what they were trying to do at times is not have this whole big old war. Let's just allow representatives to fight for us. And Goliath was the type that whenever they were in this type of situation, he was the one that they would send out there because of his stature, because of his strength, because he was a qualified warrior, been fighting wars from his youth. So he was strong enough to defend his army and allow them to be victorious just because he would win. So he was used to seeing the other army's champion. He was used to facing seasoned, hardened warrior. But now they send out a boy who doesn't even have on armor. He doesn't have a sword. He doesn't have a shield. All he has is a few rocks and a slingshot and a stick. And he's going out to face this battle-hardened warrior. You see, you may not have what the giant has. It may seem like what you have is not enough. I can't preach like them, or I can't pray like this one, or I can't play like that one, or I can't sing like this one. But my little bit that God gave me is more than enough. I might not be able to do some things like some other people, but the little bit that God gave you is more than enough. Stop trying to measure yourself up against other people and just take comfort in the 5 smooth stones that God gave you. What God gave you is more than enough. It's more than enough. It's more than enough. He had 5 smooth stones, but he only used one. Yeah, I was thinking, usually when you're going into battle, what they would even do sometimes is when we were going on certain maneuvers, they would check your pack to see how heavy it was. And if it was too heavy, then somebody would go in and you don't need that. You don't need that. They were trying to lighten your load so that you can be agile and you can maneuver, and you can be swift on the battlefield. So as David is going out, God actually gives him more things to weigh him down. You may be asking yourself, God, why are you putting more stuff on me to weigh me down? You know I'm going out to the battlefield. I need to be like God, but you keep dumping more on me. You keep dumping more on me. God said, what I'm doing, I'm teaching you how to pray. I'm teaching you when to pray. I'm teaching you how to fast. I'm teaching you how to labor for me. I'm teaching you how to not just rightly divide the word, but how to apply the word to your life. God said, what I'm putting on you is preparing you for what lies ahead. Somebody say, he's preparing me. He's preparing me. Yeah, it was when he was a little boy, God told him to get 5 stones. Only used one to kill Goliath. But if you flip all the way over to 2 Samuel, chapter 21, 2 Samuel chapter 21, start with verse 15. It reads, once again, the Philistines were at war with Israel. Here they go again. And when David and his men were in the thick of battle, David became weak and exhausted. Ishbi-benob was a descendant of the giants. His bronze spearhead weighed more than 7 pounds, and he was armed with a new sword. He had cornered David and was about to kill him. But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, came to rescue David and kill the Philistine. Then David's men declared, you're not even coming out to battle with us again. Why risk snuffing out the light of Israel? But after this, there was another battle against the Philistines at Gath. As they fought, Sibbecai, the Hushah, killed Saph, another descendant of the giants. During another battle at Gath, Elhanan, son of Jair from Bethlehem, killed the brother of Goliath at Gath. The handle of his spear was as thick as a weaver's beam. In yet another battle with the Philistines at Gath, they encountered a huge man, 6 fingers on each hand and 6 fingers on each toe, on each foot. 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in all, who was also a descendant of the giants. But when he defied and taunted the Israelites, he was killed by Jonathan, the son of David's brother Shimea. These 4 Philistines were descendants of the giants of Gath, but David and his warriors killed them all. You see, they continued to have problems with the Philistines. Even when the Philistines didn't have the numbers to go in a full-fledged battle, as long as they had giants, they always felt like they had a fighting chance. As long as they had giants, they felt like they had a chance. So here we see a battle. David, who was a great warrior, thought he had one more fight left in him. And he comes face to face with another giant. And he's like, when I was a boy, I killed one giant. Surely I can kill another one. But now he's a little older. You see, he got tired in the thick of battle. He was exhausted, and the giant was able to corner him. But just when you thought David's light was about to go out, God sent him help. Just when the enemy has you cornered and you think there's no help for you, God will send help. But not only did David get help and kill that giant, as you read, 3 more giants, a total of 4 giants were killed. What are you saying? These were what the other 4 stones were for. God knew ahead of time that David, before his life was over, was going to come face to face with 5 giants. And one he used to kill Goliath. That day, that moment, the other 4 stones symbolic of what was coming ahead. He was preparing him. He was preparing him. He was preparing him. And although David got cornered, we know Psalms 46 said, God is our very present help in the time of trouble. So even if the devil, even if the giants have you cornered, even if you're cornered with whether it's COVID or whether it's police brutality, even no matter how cornered you are, God will send help in time of trouble. God will send help. God knew from the beginning that there were 4 more giants. God knew. So he was preparing David in advance. He gave him 5 stones. He only used 1. The other 4 was to let him know when he was a boy that in his old age there will be more giants. But when you get to this point, you're not going to have to fight them alone. You see, God knew that by the time you got to these giants that you were going to be a little bit old, and he knew that every challenge that you were going to have to face, some of them you might not have strength enough to fight them on your own. God has given you gifts, talents, special skills, abilities. God has put a ministry in you for the giants that you're going to face. But not only that, God has even blessed your children with gifts, talents, abilities, special skills, even ministries in them that are going to help some of the giants that you're dealing with. God knew the end from the beginning. You see, my father had to face some giants, and some of them he were able to defeat, but there were others that he wasn't able to defeat. So it was up to me to cut the head off of that giant. And there are even some more yet that some of my children, some of your children might have to deal with those giants, but not just deal with them. God is preparing you for what lies ahead. Preparing your children for what lies ahead. Whatever giants may be there, God is giving you what you need for that giant at that particular time. It may seem like you have too much to carry. It may seem like these rocks in your pocket are a little bit heavy. You might feel like, God, I need you to lighten this heavy load. But see, God knows what you're getting ready to face down the road. He's preparing you. He's preparing your children. You see, some of these things you're going to slay, but they're going to have to slay. So this weight you got to carry. It feels like if I could just drop some of this stuff off and not have to deal with it. But God knows the giants that you're going to have to face. He also knows the giants that you're facing now. But your steps are ordered. He's given you the 5 stones. God is right now preparing you for battle. Put on your armor. Put on your armor. Grab your stones. Prepare for battle. Prepare for battle. You will be not only victorious now, but you will be victorious in the future. He is preparing you for what lies ahead. God is preparing you for what lies ahead. God is preparing